you could take a picture of yourself shitting on the toilet and they would probably still share it.
Welcome to the Freedom Club podcast, where we discover the fight for freedom, fulfillment, passion, and purpose. Your host is Kurt Mercadante, Gallup certified strengths coach, an agency founder who is dedicated to coaching individuals seeking to level up their life and their businesses. The Freedom Club is about unlocking your talents, turning them into strengths, and crushing your objectives. You can learn more at kurtmercadante.com. Welcome to the Freedom Club.
And this is Kurt Mercadante. I am your host of the Freedom Club podcast. I'm so happy you're here. And whether today is your first time listening or your 41st time listening, if you like what you have to hear today, I would so appreciate it if you would go give us a wonderful rating and review, because that is like currency to us. We obviously don't charge. You don't hear any ads on this podcast. And so the more you can help us amplify our message, the more listeners we will have, and the more we are able to accomplish our mission of helping individuals fight for lives of freedom and fulfillment. Now, if you listened to yesterday's episode, you caught part one of a three-part series of conversations I had with London gentleman and sales guru Richard Moore. And yesterday we talked about sales. Now, you may say, why does a podcast that's called The Freedom Club, why are they talking about sales? It's because most entrepreneurs, the great majority of entrepreneurs I know, went off and started their own business because they wanted a sense of freedom and fulfillment in their lives. But all too often, a fear of sales or just doing sales not the right way, sales trips them up and prevents them from getting that life of freedom and fulfillment. So at every effort, whether it's in my private Facebook groups, in my LinkedIn videos, I like to talk to sales experts who can help give tips to those people seeking freedom and fulfillment in their lives, because if they can sell, then their businesses are going to be successful. And you know what? They're going to have more alignment in their life and be able to build that life that they desire. So I hope you liked yesterday's episode. In today's episode, we're going to talk about building a community of superfans who will help you amplify your message and, yes, supercharge your sales. And I'm talking to Richard about this because he's built several communities online. He's got several Facebook groups, private groups, premium groups, some with over 3,000 members. And so he is an absolute expert at building community. And so I'm so happy to talk to him today and allow him to share his message with you. And so without further delay, here is part two of my conversation with London gentleman, man about town, sales superstar, Richard Moore. And by the way, if you want to learn more about Richard, you want to get in touch, learn about his sales training and his courses, you can visit him at therichardmoore.com. You are someone who's built several communities. Offline, we were talking about the Enterprise Business Club. You're now launching Enterprise Business Live.
Entrepreneur, but same thing.
What did I say? Enterprise. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Entrepreneur. So can you tell us a little bit about that? How, the keys to building that community, what it's about, and where you're taking it next.
Yeah, you nailed it with consistency. But I love all these acronyms. The other one I developed in 2015, which is my whole approach for building communities on social, but also elsewhere, is the CARE approach, C-A-R-E. So consistency, abundance, so you're there all the time. Relevancy, so it's not videos of a cat playing the xylophone. It's useful value on that area. And E is engagement. So if ever anyone dares engage with any of your stuff, you're there for them, and you tag them back in. I know you were interested in this. You said something the other day about that. So here's another post that might be interesting. Just, really there all the time and showing up like that. That approach works. It's all it is to it. And then the term is, you hold your breath and be willing to say, this isn't a strategy where I'm expecting results the next 2 months. This is it. Indefinitely. This is it. So yeah, it's 3,500 people in the group over the last couple of years or so, but there's not like I'm aiming so that 5,000 and I'll monetize it. No, there's incentives all the time. The other day I did best answer to this post gets $50 in their PayPal and things like that. And you're constantly feeding in and treating it like a family member, so it gets the same amount of time and nurture my businesses do as family members do. Just really giving them a lot of love. And and then people show up for you because you become part of their routine. That's like the Q&As I do. If I do it every single Monday at 8 a.m. EST, and that's 101 episodes it was yesterday, 101 weeks of it, it just means that people are expecting it. And it's like, that's what I do, in the same way as at 12:15 I have lunch, at 8 a.m. I watch Richard's live stream. And that's, I think, just being there every single day, make sure your distribution's good enough that people know about it, but eventually you become part of people's lives, and that's the way to go, really. You have that. You must have this as well, Kurt. You have this hard kernel of people who love everything you could do. You could take a picture of yourself shitting on the toilet, and they would probably still share it because it's Kurt Mercadante. So I think just having that that group of people and giving love to the little guys, even if they're not necessarily buying courses or consulting, but they're sneezing. Great news about you. It matters. So there's no secret magic. Sure, you've got to be good and give good advice and help people, but when you've got to think, if I reverse engineer from everyone sharing behind my back about how I'm a good guy and I help people out and I'm really generous, what would I need to do to have that happen? And I think it is showing up every day for them.
Yeah, and just for the record, I don't have any plans to share a photo of me shitting on the toilet. But if things get desperate, you never know. So Richard,
I once went to a festival, and there was a comedy tent, and it was these stand-up comedians, one on every half hour or so. And there was a guy, this must have been 15 years ago, there was a guy who was bombing out, and the whole tent was slow hand clapping because he was terrible. And he was losing them all, and he had nothing left. He just stood there and pulled his trousers, pants, and underpants down around his ankles and stood there like that. And he got a cheer for 2 minutes, and then we're like, now get off. So he did try, and sometimes desperate measures, right? But hopefully you don't go that far.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, and you were talking about the consistency and building community. Gary Vee and Seth Godin had a video, and they were talking about branding and personal branding, and Godin was talking about it comes down to authority, and that authority is achieved, he said, through a constant. It's a circle of authority, attention and trust.
Yeah.
And his point was, you could drop your pants and get attention, but the rest of the show sucked.
Yeah.
And you didn't gain that trust. And
That's
so
right.
you have to gain both. Otherwise, you could be the most trustworthy person in the world.
Yeah.
And I see people get frustrated, for instance, with LinkedIn video, where they'll do a few LinkedIn videos, they get 0 views and they give up and say, this doesn't work. Well, they haven't been consistent to build that trust over time to get attention.
And the reason why your LinkedIn videos would work are because under the bonnet, you're spending disproportionate amount of time warming up and giving a huge amount of love to those who are on your front row seats, who are going to watch it and enjoy it and endorse it and be advocates for it. And it's, for every piece of content going out, there's a huge amount of time spent with the people out there. But Godin's my favorite right now. I love him. I'm so lucky I've been able to have some email conversations with him as well. He helped me with the course I built a few years back. And, he's right. You can't be good, because good is average, right? Especially with all the apps and things we've got to produce stuff, you have to be remarkable. And you have to, again, reverse engineer from for instance, for me, how do I get people saying, this guy knows his stuff in sales? You have to expose yourself big time, and not in the sense we've just been discussing, but expose yourself big time and say, I'm wearing on my sleeve in front of everyone, for instance, on LinkedIn, including all my clients, things that really prove I know what I'm talking about. And that's the way to do it. You've got to be remarkable. And I think if you're not, then ask yourself, do you need to go back in and learn something else, or spend some time in it, or have some experience? Or perhaps do you need to maybe pivot and look at talking about something slightly different?